Discovery. The research vessel Mendel hung in orbit above XO3, a newly discovered exoplanet that gleamed an unsettling shade of purple. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling vegetation below. After 15 years of xenobotany, she thought she'd seen everything the galaxy had to offer. She was wrong. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," her assistant Tom called from the lab. "The preliminary scans are, well, they're unlike anything we've recorded." The massive holographic display showed readings from the planet's surface. The purple color came from vast fields of vegetation that seemed to pulse with bioelectric energy. But what caught Sarah's attention was the complete absence of animal life larger than a bacteria. "Where are the herbivores?" she muttered. "Every ecosystem we've found has them." "That's not the strangest part," Tom said, pulling up another scan. "Watch this time-lapse from the probe." The footage showed a small mammalian creature, similar to an earth rabbit, approaching one of the purple plants. In less than a second, the plant's tendrils whipped out, wrapped around the creature, and dissolved it. Complete molecular breakdown in under 30 seconds. "We've checked the records," Tom continued. "The Galactic database has one entry about this planet. It's marked as Class X biohazard by the Ardani. They lost an entire survey team here 3 centuries ago." Sarah felt a familiar tingle of excitement. Where other species saw danger, humans had always seen opportunity. It was why they'd survived on Earth, with its endless array of deadly creatures and plants. It was why they'd thrived among the stars. "Prepare the containment lab," she ordered. "We're going to need samples." The Ardani representative on the Galactic Council had been horrified when humanity announced their intention to study XO3. "The death vine, as we call it, has claimed thousands of lives across multiple species," she had warned. "It shows signs of collective intelligence and grows more aggressive with each encounter. We quarantined that world for a reason." But humans had a long history of turning deadly plants into valuable resources. Foxglove became heart medicine. Willow bark became aspirin. And now, perhaps, this death vine could become something more. The landing party consisted of Sarah, Tom, and Dr. James Wong, their lead biochemist. They wore the latest in protective gear, suits designed to resist everything from acid to plasma weapons. The surface gravity was slightly higher than Earth normal, making each step a bit more laborious. "Remember," Sarah said through the comm, "we're looking for younger specimens. They should be easier to." She trailed off as they crested a ridge and saw the valley below. The purple vegetation stretched as far as the eye could see, moving in ways that plants shouldn't move. The tendrils seemed to reach toward them, even from hundreds of meters away. But what truly caught their attention was the architecture. The plants had grown into complex geometric patterns, forming structures that resembled buildings. "This isn't just a plant," James whispered. "This is a civilization." Their suit sensors began picking up complex electromagnetic patterns emanating from the vegetation. The plants were communicating, sharing information about the intruders in their midst. "Look at the root systems," Tom said, pointing to his scanner. "They're all connected. The entire planet is one giant organism." Sarah felt a moment of doubt. Had humanity finally found something too dangerous to tame? Then she remembered the early days of agriculture, when her ancestors had first dared to plant deadly nightshade alongside their crops, learning to harness its properties for medicine. "We're not leaving," she declared. "Humanity didn't become a spacefaring species by running from challenges. We're going to understand this organism, and we're going to find a way to work with it." As if in response to her words, the nearest tendrils began to move, forming complex patterns in the air. The death vine wasn't just aware of them. It was studying them right back. The race to understand XO3's deadly guardian had begun, and Sarah Chen, like countless human pioneers before her, was ready to risk everything in pursuit of knowledge that could change the galaxy forever. Understanding. The first casualty came 3 weeks into the research. It wasn't from the death vine. At least not directly. Dr. Marcus Reed, one of the junior researchers, had been analyzing a tissue sample when his containment suit malfunctioned. The microscopic particles he inhaled sent him into immediate anaphylactic shock. "The spores are evolving," Dr. Sarah Chen announced to her team, standing before the holographic display in the Mendel's main lab. "They're actively attempting to bypass our protective measures." The medical bay had managed to save Marcus, but the incident confirmed what Sarah had suspected. The death vine was far more intelligent than anyone had realized. Each interaction with the research team led to new adaptive behaviors. "Look at this," Tom said, pulling up comparison scans. "The plant's molecular structure is shifting on an hourly basis. It's like it's running billions of micro-experiments, testing different configurations." Dr. James Wong stroked his chin thoughtfully. "It reminds me of the old supercomputers we used to use for protein folding. But this is happening organically, at speeds we've never seen in nature." Sarah studied the latest readings. The death vine had begun producing complex chemical compounds that mimicked human neurotransmitters. It wasn't just trying to kill them, it was trying to understand them. "We need to change our approach," she declared. "We've been treating it like a threat to be contained, but what if we're dealing with a potential partner?" The suggestion drew skeptical looks from her colleagues. The death vine had already claimed hundreds of lives across multiple species. The Ardani's warning about its growing aggression seemed well-founded. But Sarah had noticed something peculiar in the data. While the plant attacked most organic matter instantly, it showed different behavior toward human tissue. There was a delay, almost like hesitation, before its defensive mechanisms activated. "Bring up the historical records," she ordered. "Everything we have on Earth's most dangerous plants." The holographic display filled with images. The manchineal tree, whose sap could burn through protective gear. The jimpy, whose sting drove people to suicide. The deadly nightshade that had killed countless children with its tempting berries. "Humans didn't just survive these threats," Sarah explained. "We learned to use them." The manchineal became a source of shipbuilding material. The jimpy taught us about pain receptors. Nightshade gave us essential medicines. She pulled up new data, showing the death vine's reaction to different human biochemical markers. This plant isn't just defensive, it's curious. Every attack is also an analysis. It's learning about us as we learn about it. The breakthrough came when they started exposing the samples to human hormones. The plant responded differently to adrenaline versus serotonin, showing what could only be described as preferences. "It's like a chemical conversation," James realized. "The plant's toxins aren't just weapons, they're a language." Sarah began designing a new protocol. Instead of trying to neutralize the death vine's defensive mechanisms, they would attempt to communicate through controlled chemical exchanges. The Galactic Council was horrified. "You can't negotiate with a plant," the Ardani representative insisted, "especially not one that's killed so many." But humanity had a different perspective. Their own planet's history was full of deadly organisms that became allies once properly understood. The very basis of their civilization, agriculture, came from learning to work with plants that could kill them. "We're going ahead," Sarah informed the council. "We'll take every precaution, but this is too important to abandon." She didn't tell them about her most radical theory, that the death vine's aggression might not be purely defensive. Its complex behaviors, its ability to learn and adapt, suggested something more. Perhaps it was lonely. Perhaps after eons of destroying any creature that came near, it had finally found a species stubborn enough to stick around. The next phase would be dangerous. They would need to establish direct chemical communication with the plant, risking exposure to its evolving toxins. But Sarah knew this was how humanity had always progressed, by reaching out to the unknown, even when it could kill them. As she prepared the new protocols, she couldn't help but smile. Somewhere in the galaxy, other species were placing bets on how many humans would die in this foolish endeavor. They still didn't understand that humans had been playing this game since they first crawled out of Earth's primordial seas. The death vine was about to learn what countless Earth organisms had learned before. Humans didn't just survive deadly things, they made them into friends. Breakthrough. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the reinforced observation chamber, watching the death vine's tendrils dance behind the transparent barrier. After 2 months of careful experimentation, they were ready to attempt direct communication. Chemical synthesis complete. Tom announced from his station. The compound mirrors the plant's base communication markers, but with human emotional signatures integrated. Sarah nodded, her heart racing. They discovered that the death vine's toxins weren't just weapons. They were complex chemical signals carrying information. By analyzing thousands of samples, they created a rudimentary translation matrix. Beginning transmission, James said, initiating the release of their synthetic compound through the chamber's specialized vents. The reaction was immediate. The death vine's purple tendrils froze mid-motion, then began weaving patterns they'd never seen before. The plant's bioelectrical activity spiked off their charts. It's responding. Sarah leaned closer to the barrier. Look at the molecular restructuring. It's trying to match our compound. The plant's surface began shifting colors, moving through shades of purple into something closer to blue. Its tendrils formed complex geometric shapes that reminded Sarah of mathematical equations. "This is incredible," Tom whispered. "The plant isn't just responding to our chemical signals, it's improving them. Look at these molecular chains." The death vine had taken their synthetic compound and rebuilt it, making it more efficient, more information-dense. It was teaching them how to speak its language. But the real breakthrough came when they analyzed the plant's response. Hidden in the complex chemical markers was a pattern that repeated across all their samples. It wasn't just communication, it was a question. "Why?" Sarah translated, her hand shaking as she read the chemical signatures. "It's asking us why we keep coming back." For centuries, every species that encountered the death vine had either tried to destroy it or fled in terror. Humanity was the first to persist, to try understanding it. The plant wasn't just deadly, it was lonely. Sarah made a decision that would either revolutionize xenobotany or get her killed. She walked to the chamber's airlock. "Dr. Chen," James moved to stop her. "The protective protocols are based on fear," she finished. "We've proven the plant can communicate. Now we need to show trust." She entered the airlock, her colleagues watching in horror as she began removing her protective suit. The death vine's tendrils pressed against the inner chamber wall, following her movements. "Sarah, please," Tom's voice cracked over the comm. "We can't lose you." "You won't," she assured him, though her hands trembled as she removed her helmet. "Remember what we learned about Earth's deadly plants. They didn't become less deadly. We learned to work with them, to respect them." She took a deep breath and opened the inner door. The death vine's tendrils immediately surrounded her, but they didn't strike. Instead, they formed a complex canopy overhead, creating patterns that matched her own brain's electrical activity. Sarah felt a tingling sensation as microscopic spores landed on her skin. But instead of the expected anaphylactic reaction, she experienced something entirely different. Images, emotions, and concepts flooded her mind. The death vine wasn't just communicating, it was sharing memories. She saw centuries of loneliness, of defending itself against creatures that wanted to exploit or destroy it. She felt its curiosity about humans, the first species to offer something other than fear or aggression. "We want to learn," Sarah said aloud, knowing the plant could sense her body's chemical responses. "We want to understand." The tendrils wove closer, releasing new compounds. Sarah's colleagues watched in amazement as her skin absorbed the chemicals without harm. The death vine had completely reformulated its toxins, transforming them into a bridge between their species. "It's beautiful," Sarah breathed, watching colors ripple through the vegetation around her. It's been waiting for someone who wouldn't give up, who would keep trying to understand. The implications were staggering. The death vine wasn't just intelligent. It was a biological supercomputer, capable of complex chemical engineering that surpassed anything in known space. And now, after eons of isolation, it was ready to share its knowledge. Sarah turned to the observation window, her eyes bright with discovery. "Send the message to the Galactic Council," she ordered. "Tell them humanity hasn't just survived the death vine. We've made first contact with a new form of intelligence." The plant's tendrils formed a gentle spiral around her, a gesture they would later learn meant agreement. Humanity's reputation for turning deadly things into allies was about to reach new heights. Triumph. 5 years after humanity's first contact with the death vine, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The observation deck of the new Synfidum research station offered a perfect view of these changes. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the window, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive space station. Below them, the purple surface of XO3, now officially renamed Synthesis, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that could be seen from space. "The latest numbers are in," Tom said, joining her at the window. His hair had gone gray at the temples, but his eyes still sparkled with the same excitement they'd had during their first discovery. The Synfidum-enhanced crops have increased food production across 17 systems by 300%. Sarah nodded, remembering the initial resistance they'd faced. It had taken months to convince the first agricultural worlds to try the modified strains. Now they couldn't keep up with demand. "And the medical applications?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Better than we hoped," James called from his workstation. "The targeted healing strains have effectively cured 12 previously terminal conditions. The Ardani scale rot is completely eradicated, and the Nexian neural deterioration is responding to treatment." The Synfidum's ability to analyze and reconstruct organic matter at the molecular level had revolutionized medicine. What had once been a deadly defense mechanism was now saving millions of lives. A gentle purple tendril wrapped around Sarah's wrist, her personal connection to the main Synfidum consciousness. After years of cooperation, the plant had developed specialized strains that could safely bond with human partners, creating a direct chemical communication link. Through this connection, Sarah felt the plant's satisfaction, not just at the practical achievements, but at finally having a purpose beyond survival. The loneliness that had driven it to attack all life for eons had been replaced by a deep sense of connection. Dr. Chen, a young Ardani researcher, approached, their scales shimmering with health. "The council representatives have arrived for the demonstration." Sarah smiled. This was the moment they'd been working toward. In the station's main laboratory, delegates from every major species gathered around a massive containment chamber. "Distinguished representatives," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her excitement. "5 years ago, you called us mad for trying to work with the galaxy's deadliest plant. Today, we'll show you the ultimate proof of what cooperation between species can achieve." The chamber's force field dropped, revealing a new strain of Synfidum. Unlike the purple tendrils they'd first encountered, this variant shimmered with every color imaginable. "This," Sarah explained, "is the synthesis strain. It represents the complete integration of Synfidum intelligence with organic computing. It can analyze, repair, and enhance any biological system without causing harm." The delegates watched in amazement as the plant began to glow, releasing patterns of light and chemical signals that their instruments could barely comprehend. "But its true potential goes beyond medicine or agriculture," Sarah continued. "The Synfidum has taught us something fundamental about life itself, that what we perceive as deadly is often just misunderstood potential." She gestured to the station around them. "This facility isn't just a research station. It's the first of many planned bioengineering centers that will combine human innovation with Synfidum intelligence. Together, we'll tackle the greatest challenges facing our galaxy." The plant's tendrils formed complex three-dimensional structures, displaying their plans. Dead worlds brought back to life, incurable diseases conquered, food shortages eliminated, even the ability to terraform hostile planets in weeks rather than centuries. "Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy isn't our technology or our resilience," Sarah concluded. It's our ability to see past fear and find allies in the most unlikely places. We didn't tame the death vine. We helped it become what it always had the potential to be, a partner in creation rather than an agent of destruction. Through her neural link, Sarah felt the Synfidum's agreement. What had begun as a deadly encounter had evolved into something unprecedented, a true synthesis of different forms of life working together for the greater good. The galaxy's deadliest plant had become its greatest hope for the future, and humanity, true to form, had turned another mortal enemy into an invaluable friend. As the delegates began asking questions and examining the new strain, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was how humans had always progressed, not by conquering or destroying the dangerous things they encountered, but by understanding them, working with them, and helping them become something more. The death vine was dead. Long live the Synfidum!